Of course, when we announce any type of funding, it gets a lot of interest. So I'm really hoping we can answer some of your questions, but I'm also interested in hearing from you a little bit today. So I'm going to share my screen and get going. So we're here to talk about compassionate communities, which is our newest project, thanks to Pears Funding. You might have seen, we've posted a blog online about it, so you may have seen things about this already, but it's lovely to have you here today to hear a bit more. What I'm going to cover today are the following. So obviously talking about the project in general, something that we're calling the project action team, which will make sense when we get there, a little bit about the grants process, and then some key dates for your diary. Just to let you know that this is actually one of 2 webinars that we're going to be hosting about this funding. The next one is going to be more specifically about the grants process, because I know there'll be loads of questions. But that is going to be on a couple of weeks on the 17th of February. And that's actually the day that we're hoping the grants will launch. So hopefully it'll be a really good day to get thinking and chatting about it. I'm sure Yvonne, when she's not admitting everyone, will share the link so that if you haven't already signed up for the grants process specifically around this one, then you can do. So today's a bit more about an overview, a little bit about the grants, and then also a bit of chance to hear from you about what your thoughts are initially and what we can do in the next couple of weeks to make that process even easier when we do go live with the grants. Also, please excuse me, I'm coming off the back of the dreaded lurgy, so if I have to mute myself to cough, that's why. Right. So this page is a bit wordy, I do apologise, but I felt it was the best way to get as much covered as possible. So we're really, really pleased that we have been successful in getting a £750,000 grant fund from Pears, and 70% of that will be going directly to the network in grants, and the other 30% will be used by us at Homestart UK to support this project. We've been really lucky in that we've already had £2.5 million from Pears, which have been essential funds already provided to us to develop and sustain our network through the pandemic and since the pandemic. I'm sure some of you in this room have been part of the breathing space funding before. We had some other volunteering challenge grants before from Pears. And they also helped us develop and carry on supporting volunteers through the pandemic. They helped us to quickly develop things to make sure that we could continue to support families in that way. So this funding is now, we're looking beyond the immediate challenges that we've had in recent years due to many things, which you're all very aware of, so I won't go into, and start looking into some more transformative work that will help build stronger, more sustainable, compassionate communities of support for families. Now, that's where the name of this project has come from, that line from our bid, which is around creating compassionate communities. So this work is about transformation, and I wanted to talk about that word a little bit because it can be a bit scary, and that's why you may have heard this project referred to before as volunteer transformation. But actually, I wanted to steer clear of that word a little bit because it could be seen that it means we're completely changing everything, and that's absolutely not the case. We know that our model for support works. Home visiting will always be at the centre of what we offer to our families. We know that Homestart volunteers will always be at the heart of everything we do. But transformation at central and local levels is about looking at processes, new approaches, welcoming people into our movement in different ways so that we can combat the declining volunteer numbers, obviously working in the increasingly complex landscape. And all of this, of course, is about delivering our strategic ambition so that more families can have access to relational, compassionate communities of support. So that's a bit more about the funding in general. So this project will be made up of 4 phases. That's what we're calling them. We're currently in phase 1, which is the discovery phase and the launch of the grant funding. Discovery phase has been completed or is being completed by us at Homestart UK, and that's about looking at lots of that data that you've thankfully provided us in your NDR and QDR about information and data around volunteering as it already stands, the issues that you're facing in the network, the issues that are being faced nationally in volunteering, so that we can really build a picture of what volunteering looks like now and what our challenges are. And of course, your input has always been completely invaluable to that. And then obviously launch of grant funding is next on our list and is coming very soon. The next stage is the design phase, which will be a couple of months at the very beginning of the project once people have been successful with their grants and come and join our project. So we'll take a couple of months to really have a look at what we think this project really needs to do. And obviously there's a lot of that already decided, but we really need to work together as a team to design the project. And then the biggest chunk of this project, of course, will be our test and learn phase, which should be from July this year until the end of December next year. And that's about testing those approaches, redesigning resources, learning from what we've done, upscaling and sustaining, and sharing with the network. And then the last phase, which will probably start before the end of December, is about scaling and sustainability, because obviously anything we do, we want it to be able to support the whole movement, the whole network, and not just a few of us and a few people, a few home starts that get the funding. So the project action team. So I've written here that this project represents a slightly new way of working with grants for Home Start. So as well as sort of thinking about how you might use the money for your Home Start, as part of that funding, we will need people to join what we're calling a project action team. So we will meet fairly regularly as a project action team, and it's about working together as a movement, designing and testing and learning together. So although you might have applied to test a new role and that's what you want to do as part of your funding, it might be that several others have also wanted to do that. So maybe we make sure that you're not testing the same new role, or you're working together to test different parts of it. So we're hoping to come together really regularly to make sure we're designing, testing, learning together, and also evaluating and looking at how we scale for the benefit of the whole network. So obviously we'll talk about this a lot more at the next webinar, but when you are thinking about applying, you'll need to think both about what you'd like to do with the grant in terms of transforming volunteering locally, but also what it would take for you to actively join the project action team so that we can work together as a whole movement. So the grant process, once again, this will be talked about more at the next webinar. But just so you know, this will open soon. We're hoping the 17th of February, as I said before. And the grant will need to fund the resource that it takes for you or your Home Start to attend and be an active member of the project action team, to design and test transformative ways of working and new approaches, obviously reporting and evaluation, and then whatever we create at the end of that, whether it's a toolkit, new resources, a website, we don't know yet. That's the joy of the designing and testing and learning together. So yeah, so it says here, the application form will be your chance to demonstrate why you'd be a good addition to the project action team and why your project will transform volunteering. So you might want to look at any of these things, and we'll have more information, but I just wanted to get your heads starting in that zone, and so you could start having a think. So maybe about any innovation you've already done, what you would need for your Home Start to take steps in transforming volunteering, what volunteer transformation means to you. Maybe you've always wanted to try something, but you've never had the time or resource or money to do so, and how you'd be a great asset to an exciting and proactive network-wide team, and more. Of course, it's never that simple, is it? But the grants will be really, really, we're hoping that there'll be substantial amounts of money available for those who join, so that you can really take an active part in being part of the project action team. So here are some key dates. The application window will open on the 17th of February and will be open until the 21st of March. The grant panel will meet on the 31st of March and the 1st of April, and we hope that decisions will be announced by the end of that week. Grant distributions will take place during the month of April. If any of you have been lucky enough to have a grant before, you'll know that sometimes the DocuSign and the financial processes can take a while. And then we hope that the first project action meeting will take place in May, because that's when we have to get started on that design phase. So, as I've said before, this project really does represent a new way of working with grants for home starts. So I would love to hear from you about what your thoughts are on this project action team plus project approaches. How could we make sure that it was really useful for you? What would you like to get out of this project? And what would be useful for the whole network? If we could say to you, right, we've got this money right now, what do you need from us or the project action team to help you transform your volunteering? Now, those are really big questions. So I will try and make sure that I can put them into the chat, and I'll stop sharing so that we can see. But it'd be really great if anybody can either put in the chat or come off mute and have a chat with us about any of this, really, what your initial thoughts are and how it might be useful or beneficial for you. I'm going to stop sharing and see if I can find see if I can copy and paste those things. So has anybody got any initial thoughts on this project and our slightly new way of working? I'm just going to put in the chat. Oh. Okay. Ah, this is great. Everyone's really, I mean, it's a lot of information, isn't it? So I do understand that it's a lot to suddenly ask your feedback. Yes, sorry, I've just seen that question. Yvonne's already answered, but yes, the 17th of February definitely will be recorded and we'll have some more information. But just as a general overview, we know that grants could be up to around £50,000. And it will obviously include whatever it takes for you to be part of that project action team. Obviously, the point of having a whole team is that we don't have to transform all of volunteering at your local home start. We're hoping to do that across the project action team. And yeah, another thing to think about is that this doesn't have to be a brand new idea. It could be that you're already working on something and you think this could be a great way to propel it or to give you extra resource for evaluation. So please, like, this is why transformation is such a big, scary word, because it's not necessary. We don't have to completely change things. This can be about testing something that you think might work. Kerry, I can see you've got your hand up.
Hello. Yeah, my question was just around sort of, does it have to be new work? So you've literally just answered it.
I'm sorry.
Because no, it's fine. So we've just within the last 3 months had a member of staff take a sidestep into the volunteer coordinator role. So I think for us, it'd be looking at how that sort of really works. What we've already identified just from the last 3 months is having one dedicated person who can even just follow up on the initial contacts from potential volunteers. That has been more impactful so far than attending like loads of different events and sort of having to go out and find them. Actually, once they show interest, it's about really keeping up with following up with us. So for us, it'd be probably around that kind of thing.
Yeah, perfect. And that's exactly the sort of thing that we'd love to encourage. So yeah, if you've already got something, you think it works, you'd love a bit of resource to be able to sort of prove that theory and then have the time and space to turn that into something useful, like guidance or a toolkit that we could share across the whole network for people to learn from that. Yeah, thank you, Kerry. That was a really good point. Thank you. Eliza?
Hey, Sally. I mean, I think it sounds like really positive, and particularly that thought around, yeah, how does some like test and learn approaches get refined in a group and then can get disseminated out? Because there's probably not like a volunteer kind of community of practices maybe been missing from the network. I guess I'm curious, like if we had an idea for like a project, but we were thinking about testing it in 2 places, so we wanted to collaborate with another home start.
Yeah.
Would it be that we could both apply independently and just link our projects, or would you expect that to be like one application? And if so, is there thought that like kind of the cap on the finance would be different for a collaborative project than it would be for an individual project?
Yep. Thanks, Eliza. We have been thinking about this because we had a similar thought from somebody else as well, other people that are used to working together in the network. So yeah, we will put this more into guidance specifically when we get to it. But yes, we're definitely open to sort of accepting group applications, and as you say, that might change the amount that we look at. And obviously, because if it was you and one other, obviously you both might still both attend the project action team meetings, but you'll be working on one project together. So yes, we're open for all of that. That's the whole point of this, you know, even being innovative around the way we use grants. So yeah, definitely think about that, working with other home starts and or coming together as a consortium, formal or informal. Thanks, Eliza. Sue, is that Sue?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, yep.
Okay, so my question is, obviously key to everything is the volunteers that go into the homes.
Yeah.
But there's also other roles that there's possibility for volunteers to complete. But then there's issues around how much training, DBS. So let's say somebody does a creche, that's quite easy. But if somebody's doing fundraising as a volunteer, then where does all of that sort of get sorted?
Oh, I think we just lost you. Oh, never mind. I can answer what. Oh, sorry, Sue. We sort of lost you halfway through there.
Okay.
Sorry, but yeah, yes, I mean, a big thing about that we're looking at when we're talking about communities of volunteering is sort of widening what we mean by volunteering. You know, we all, I'm sure in this room, have experienced those people that we know would make a brilliant home visitor, but can't at this point make that commitment. And so we're looking at different entryways into volunteering, creating a community around your home start. And like you say, that will mean different training, different vetting. And so all of those things, you know, we would hope that at the end of this project, we'll create some sort of resource or toolkit that means when people are approaching you as a home start, you can say, these are all the different ways you can support us as a volunteer. And obviously we would hope that once they've got home start in their heads and they're coming along to a really quick training course, and then they do a couple of events, and then the next year they might do some more, and then the next year they might sign up to the prep course. Or maybe somebody who's trained as a home visitor needs to take a step back, and instead of becoming resting and they completely sort of leave the movement for a while, they stay with us and they complete a different role. And that's what this is where it started. Actually, we were thinking about how can we get a community of home start, a community of volunteers around every home start, and what would that need to look like? And that's sort of what we'd like to be able to test and learn about through this program, really, and different ways of people becoming a home start volunteer, and like you say, the sort of logistics and operations around that, like training and vetting, DBS, PVG, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think thank you, especially if, can you hear me again? I've got very poor signal. Especially if you've got a small team of staff.
Yes.
Then sometimes the thought of having different types of volunteers and all the management that goes with that possibly, and how that could be split up in different ways. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Alice?
Hello, sorry.
Hi.
Sorry to be a bit specific here. I might have missed something, but just you said about the action team meetings, and the funds potentially coming in about April time. Could you remind me when the action team meetings would start?
We would hope that they would start around May. Obviously, okay. We know that if funding was to fund a specific person, and that's quite a quick turnaround to get them in, it might be that you send somebody as a deputy or as a sort of, or you decide to join slightly later. Obviously, all those conversations can be. Okay. We understand.
I was just worried about the timeline.
Yeah, we totally get that. Obviously, it's a lot to expect quickly. But yeah, that's fine. And just to know, I can't keep up with all the questions in the chat, but I've seen that a few people have asked about like how much is the pack going to take. At the moment, we've said regular meetings. We expect around once a month. And obviously in between that, you'd be doing the work to bring back to the project action team. But we will have really drilled that down, and it will be in the guidance when we launch the grants, and we'll talk more about that at the next webinar. Kaz? Oh, you're on mute. Sorry. Oh, you've spotted it.
Sorry, I'm new to Zoom. So my question is around the difference between volunteer recruitment in urban and rural, and then very rural areas. And I wonder if your assessment process for the grant will consider that, so that we have a good spread, and if that will be made clear in the guidance.
So we've started writing this guidance already, as you can imagine, and one of our key elements is making sure that we have a really good geographical and sort of urban rural spread. It's really important to us in terms of inclusion, diversity, and because it will obviously impact the information that goes out at the end, and how many people it will impact. So that's exactly the sort of project we're after, Kaz.
I mean, there is rural, and then there's really rural. So and just leading on from that, with the PACT group, are you looking at that being in person, online, or a mixture?
It would be majority online. We're so spread out. I mean, it would be lovely, wouldn't it, to have at least one meeting during that time in person, but that all depends on all sorts of things. But yeah, it'll be online as our sort of start of place. Fiona, did you have something to add specifically for Kaz? Sorry, Verla,
I was just going to say, like, something like that is like really exciting, and it could be as well that it could be that a home started in a rural setting and really wants to work on the recruitment, and we have somebody who like, and this is where that kind of PAT team is going to be so interesting, because you could pair together, like a lot of thought will go into that stuff. So, or even if beforehand, again, as we have a couple of weeks before things go live, if that's something you're interested in, and you connect with somebody who is in a city or something like that, and then do it together, get in touch with the volunteering team, and we can support you as well in those conversations.
I mean, I think there are some real benefits for grouping like for like. I know that if you look on a sort of demographic perspective, Norfolk is very similar to Cornwall. You wouldn't expect that. So you'd expect similar things there, but linking somebody very, very rurally with inner city could provide lots of thinking that we wouldn't necessarily have thought about being where we are, and that somebody in, say, Tower Hamlets would never have considered, because everything's within such a small space of time. So I think it'd be really interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah,
it would be. Sorry, Fiona. Yeah, that's exactly the sort of thinking that we want this project to uncover, and that's why we want this sort of project action team model to really come together. Verla?
We've got some of the things have already been said, so I just want to clarify. We've got similar ideas. How would that work? And I'll just give you the scenario. So we cover Blackpool, Faldon, Wyre, which is a big geographical area. And when you talk about rural, we've got a lot of rural places in Faldon, Wyre that we're reaching out to. And for us, it is about that momentum of recruiting them volunteers through that process, keeping them engaged till they get on the prep course, and having a specific person who can do that.
Yes. Yeah, exactly that. And I think, you know, we've talked about it a lot before in having dedicated staff time or dedicated volunteer time dedicated to managing volunteers. And I think, it would be fab if something like that was to come up as part of this project, just to see how valuable it is. We know that it's been tested across the network before, where people have come together to recruit a person to cover a wider geographical area. But what does that mean if you're already a wide geographical area on your own, like you are? Really interesting questions, and hopefully we can think about that. Fiona?
Thank you. Again, kind of pull that apart a little bit, because again, something we were talking about, and there are examples of it happening, and it's that thing as well of having like almost like community champions, like volunteers from different communities. So in a rural setting it works really well, but it also works if you're there's hard to reach communities you're just not serving at the minute, but you have families from within those communities, like LGBTQ or from asylum seekers or something like that. Like, you know, there's lots of scope as well for that in this, basically.
So the word community becomes really important again.
Sorry, can I just say as well, I think you're right there, Fiona. That's a good point. If you think about the LGBT community and things like that, some of our volunteers are not experienced in that field, and we've had quite a few being in Blackpool, and then you're trying to do a match and get a good match, and that can be quite challenging at times.
Yeah, but in terms of volunteer recruitment as well, naturally, if you feel safe because there's somebody from your community within the volunteer pool already, it's much more likely that you're going to attract and retain people and in turn then helps support families from those in those communities as well.
And also thinking about volunteer roles, like maybe it's not about recruiting a home visitor from that community, but recruiting somebody who can come in and speak at your prep courses, or somebody who can deliver training, or just come along to your events, or so it's, or just becoming a champion. So yeah, there's sort of loads of different avenues you can look, even when you're just thinking about inclusion or reaching communities. Thank you. Thanks, Verla. Raz.
Hi, Sally. So just a couple of questions. Firstly, I was thinking about, obviously it's quite a substantial amount of money, but by the time you look at 180 home starts, all of a sudden it starts filtering down to not quite as much money. And I'm sure all of us are desperate to recruit more volunteers. So I'm just thinking, you said, obviously it could potentially be sort of slightly bigger grants of around the 50,000 sort of mark. Is this a year-long project or longer?
It's 18 months. So that test and learn phase runs until December 26. So we would expect to be running project action team meetings until at least December, maybe, and then maybe one extra once we've done a bit of evaluation and things like that. But yeah, it's like a year and a half.
Yeah. So, okay. So, because I'm just thinking, obviously, if we were recruiting people to do a specific project, obviously it's going to take a little bit of time to onboard, and obviously you've got that sort of salary cost to think about. And then, secondly, if it is a case of looking at that sort of 50,000 sort of mark, and I do appreciate they're not all going to be that much. Realistically, then you're looking at about 100 home starts that will be successful. When we take out the 30%, that leaves about 525,000 in my maths across the network. So is that sort of where you're sort of looking at, about 100-ish home starts being part of this project, or do you have an idea?
No, I think so. I think the maths isn't quite mathing there, and that I'm guilty of that. So we expect it to be around 10 to 15 home starts that will get funding to join the project action team. Because obviously you can't have too big a project action team, because we need to be able to come together. But the whole point, and obviously this doesn't make up for if you're not successful in receiving funding, but the whole point is that everything we're doing as a project will impact and be useful for the wider network. So, technically we could have 10 of 52, that would make 520,000. But it could be that somebody just wants, say, 7k to deliver some evaluation, and then it frees up can you see how it can go in and out of, and obviously you might want to add on staff time to join the project action team. So obviously this is still being refined, and we will put more into this, but as a general, that's what we're looking at the moment, is 10 to 15 home starts joining the project action team as part of that 70% that's going out to the network.
Yeah, that's helpful to understand. Sorry, you're completely right. My maths is off skew. Your maths is better than mine.
Only because I've thought about it for a while longer. Don't worry, Russ.
Yeah, so on that basis, then it's a really highly competitive bid, isn't it? When we think we've got 180. Yeah, and my experience is this Pears Funding always has been. I've applied for this twice before. For projects that we were looking to that were closing, actually. It is. I appreciate, in a network it is always challenging, but it's helpful to sort of understand what your thinking is, because straight away that sort of helps us to think about, if this is something that's going to be worthwhile us putting the time to put a bid together for. Is it quite an extensive application process, or what's that going to look like? Do you know?
It should look similar to other grants processes that you've been before. So there'll be questions around your specific project and how you think it might look, but then obviously as well there'll be questions like, what would make you, what's transformation mean for you? What do you think would make you a great member of the project action team? So similar to other ones you've done via the Good Grants system before. We're not going to make it too overextensive. And just to sort of, we've gone around and around. I've been parts of Pears Funding before, where we were giving out sort of £1,000, £5,000, and for the amount of reporting and learning that we can get from that, it really is. We've decided for this project that it would be more beneficial to have fewer larger grants available, so that people can really test and learn and actively engage, so that we can really properly fund people, rather than people feeling like, oh God, I can't do that reporting. We don't know, because it's not our job to deliver services like you do, but we do really try to appreciate the way it works for you on the front line. So that's why we've decided to go with these fewer larger grants for this one.
Yep. Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Not at all. Lovely to speak to you, Raz. Catherine.
Hi. Following on from Raz's questions, actually, they were interesting to me. But what other selection criteria will you be looking at? For example, somebody else mentioned about rural versus other areas and things like that. Are you looking for a bit of a cross section of types of home starts and the level of experience and the size of the home start as well? Yes,
absolutely. And we will go through this a bit more on the other webinar, but just as our initial thoughts is absolutely we want a good cross section of our network, including all 4 nations if possible, and a split across northern and southern England. We would like different sizes of home start, different locations in terms of rural or not. And also we really don't want people to be put off if they haven't had the time or money to be able to do anything in volunteering before. Like I said in the presentation, you might have this amazing idea, but you've just never had the time to do it before. So yes, some of the application form will say, what have you done before? But also we'll have what will your project be like, and how do you think we could do this? So we sort of want like you said, Catherine, a bit mixture of experience on that, and we'd love people on the panel on the project action team to be volunteer managers and they've done volunteer management solely, or they're a volunteer manager as part of being a family coordinator, or so we want that sort of diversity across the project action team, and that will be taken into account when we're looking at the group as a whole, as well as obviously the strength of your projects and applications.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thank you. Right, I'm really sorry, I don't know if there's any other questions that I'm not, because there's so many in the chat, but what I'll try and do is I'll try and share some of the answers to if I haven't got to any.
I was going to say we can export the chat and make sure that we've covered all responses.
I can always put some notes together and we can
send it out. An FAQ page.
Thank you. Oh, Eliza.
Yeah, I was going to ask. So in the idea of like the test and learn approach and coming to the action team, will Homestart UK be engaging like an external learning partner? Is that something that you would think about individual projects building into their applications? What would that look like?
It's something that we've talked about extensively, and it was something that we are trying to commit to. So sorry that that's a bit vague, but we're obviously with our 30% centrally, we've got to work out exactly how that works. But we are trying to make sure that we have got external support, at least for facilitation of those action teams, so that although Homestart UK will be leading from a combining and coming together and practice point of view, we can also be a member of that team. So that's the idea, but I don't want to promise anything because you know how budgets work, but that is the idea and that's what we're hoping for. We'd hope to be able to cover that from Homestart UK's allocation of the money. I saw Sally from Homestart Wessex said, would it be one person from each job? Yeah, we wouldn't expect you to commit more than one person, and it would be nice from a continuity point of view if it was the same person. Obviously we all know that holidays happen, people leave, people get new jobs, but that would be the idea. I don't want to put you on the spot, Claire, but I've noticed you've had your hand up a couple of times. I didn't know if there's anything you wanted to say. You don't have to.
I think that there's a lot to process, isn't there? I've got millions of things going through my mind. I think the questions are, they keep getting asked as well, so I keep putting my hand down again.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But also, I think in terms of the 50,000, effectively we're asking that to spread over 2 years because the funding would go to support the PAP process as well. So my question was the budgeting. One of the questions that I had was around the budgeting of it and how clear the breakdown of those costings needed to be across those 2 things and across that, because it doesn't leave a lot of money to go through 2 years actually.
Okay.
When you start
you're right. Yeah, obviously if you're expecting to recruit somebody, then that it doesn't leave a lot, like you say. I can't give you a specific answer on that as we're obviously working out, but it's really useful feedback for me to take back to the team as we're planning our next webinar and planning the guidance to go around the application form. Just, it's really useful to hear that, what sounds like a a decent chunk of money obviously is, but as soon as you start looking at it a bit more in detail, then perhaps it might not be. So maybe I will definitely take it back to the team and we'll have a think about whether how we can be clearer on that. So thanks, Claire. Fiona?
Sorry, just to pick up, Andrew has said, can we clarify, is it 2 years or 18 months? It is.
So yeah, I mean, the project in total, as in when we received the money at Home.uk, is 2 years. And that started this January just gone. So last month, yeah, we're in February now. So for us, it runs until January 27. But so we're expecting that obviously you will receive money from April or May until the end of December. So it's sort of both. It's 2 years in total, but 18 months for the funding that you get. And that will include that's some element of the evaluation, although we'll also be taking on a chunk of that ourselves. We are also hopeful always that more funding will come in to be able to sort of extend that sustainability piece at the end. But at the moment, this is what this funding covers up to the end of December, January-ish 27. Raz, hello.
Hello, sorry, me again. Just a quick one. Is there a team at Home.uk that are working on this project? How many people have you got your end that are going to be busy helping us?
That's a really good point, and I should have put it in my presentation. Thanks, Raz. So it's me and the volunteering team, which is Fiona, who's been chatting as well, and Claire. And then we're also working with our colleagues in Trust Funding, because that's they've obviously supported us in getting that funding. They've got the relationship with Pears. And then we'll also be working on and off with people like our learning and development team, our practice development team. So it's not a sort of, apart from the volunteering team, it's not a set team, but we will call on expertise as necessary. Our comms team, policy team, some of these, I'm saying teams when it's actually just one person, you know how it is, but like our policy person, but yeah, there's a lot of us involved at Home.uk. The working group at the moment is made up of volunteering and the trusts team in fundraising. Fab, amazing. Thank you so much. The feedback and the questions have really, really helped. I hope they've helped you as well. Sorry that we've had to turn this into a two-parter, but I do think it was really useful to do an overview, get some feedback, and then we'll come back once the thing has launched. Please feel free to get in touch with Fiona or I or anybody in the volunteering team if you've got thoughts, questions, ideas, because it will carry on helping us to develop the project before we go live. And also it means that hopefully we can share those answers with other people, because the whole point of this project is that it impacts and affects as many of us in Home Start as possible. Okay, right, I will let you have a bit longer back. We'll call it a lunch break, but we all know we're going straight back to emails. So try if you can to get a bit of a break. But it's lovely to see so many. Thank you so much for coming. It always means a lot. I love seeing you. Thank you all so much. See you soon.